Council of Cranfield University, it's always a great pleasure to return to what I very much consider my home university, because I only live up the road. And I'm delighted, Raj, that the theme you've identified for today is the theme of reshoring. I had the privilege to have a number of European Prime Ministers meet in the CBI meeting in Brussels just before the last European Council, talk about this very issue. And I greatly look forward to hearing your presentation on the latest research you've done to see how reshoring is taking off in this country. Let me just, before Raj makes that presentation, just make a few opening comments about how I see the national manufacturing debate in the UK, thinking, Alex, of the Queen's speech and what we look for from this new Conservative government to take forward some of the agenda of industrial strategy which the coalition government, largely on a cross-party basis, developed in the last Parliament. Now, until recently, reshoring in the UK felt a bit like the debate about the Yeti in the Himalayas. It was a subject of much discussion and speculation, but something that you almost never, ever saw with your own eyes. Today, I think the debate on reshoring has moved beyond the Yeti. Rather than the Yeti, I think a much more reasonable description of reshoring in the United Kingdom's economy would be the kingfisher. And of course, the kingfisher is particularly relevant to us here in Bedfordshire. Once endangered, it's making a recent comeback. So they're still rare, but if, as I do with the dogs most Sunday mornings, you stroll up the Grand Union Canal through Leighton Buzzard, you are likely to see a kingfisher on the canal bank. And just as the kingfisher's return is a sign of improving quality of our river and canal habitats, firms will only return parts of their supply chain to the United Kingdom, which 10 or 20 years ago they offshored to Latin America, to East Asia, if they believe that the business environment is in good health. Making sure our supply chains have the right ideas, the right people, and the right materials will encourage firms back. So the debate is sometimes characterized in what's happening with wage costs in East Asia, what's happening with energy costs in the United States. But as the man whose job it is to make the UK the best possible place in the world from which to do worldwide business, for me, reshoring should be about our capabilities, the indigenous strengths of the UK in ideas, in people, and in materials. If we're strong there, there are strong organic reasons to deepen our supply chains back in the United Kingdom. And for me, in that context, reshoring is what I think is part of something I describe as an industrial renaissance in the United Kingdom. Being able to do more to help our own companies become more competitive. Now, we've already talked about reshoring and the supply chain, and that puts the focus on the companies who I believe are the most vital part of our industrial renaissance. And I'll be controversial here. I hate almost to a passion the term SME. I would love to see the term SME expunged from the Oxford English Dictionary, because I find it meaningless. It's aggregating two asset classes which are very, very distinct, small and medium, and it's brigading them into a term which has become synonymous with small. In the last 5 years, we've made a lot of progress. The government made a lot of progress on Startup Britain. It's not made anywhere near as much progress in Scale-Up Britain. And I think if you want to make reshoring work, and you want an industrial renaissance in this country, as well as a strategy on small company startups, and as well as a focus, as Cranfield has, on the very important large industrial companies which add so much value to supply chains, we need a relentless focus on the medium-sized businesses, which I talk of as a British Mittelstand, which are in many ways the forgotten army of our economy. 3 million small businesses are worth 50% of the economy. 500 large companies are worth 30% of the economy. 6,000 Mittelstand companies, research-intensive Mittelstand companies, are worth 22% of gross value added in the British economy, and we never talk about it. They are Britain's forgotten army. So in reshoring, in focusing on ideas, people and materials, I think we also need to focus on the Mittelstand. Just a word on the health of our industrial economy. Well, as already said, the last government made a good start with a new industrial strategy. We need to keep it going. The CBI's latest industrial trends survey showed that the recovery in British manufacturing continued in the last 3 months, despite sterling appreciation and the impact that has on our exports, particularly to the Eurozone. Manufacturing and energy-intensive sectors, buoyed up by a reduction in oil price, enjoyed a strong quarter. And over the next quarter, 36% of manufacturers expected total new orders to increase, 14% expected them to reduce, a positive balance of 22%, the highest since July 2014, and a sign that despite the pressure of sterling appreciation and the concerns in the Eurozone, left to itself, British manufacturing is doing well. At the last CBI manufacturing conference, I said that I felt reshoring was on my optimistic list. In the last few months, we've talked to the CEOs of 53 of Europe's biggest multinational companies. Small sample, but really key men and women in the European debate on reshoring. And I did that precisely to inform that debate before my meeting in Brussels with those European Prime Ministers. And 20 of the 53 were planning to do reshoring of the supply chain back to Europe over the next couple of years. Now, in today's world of order it tonight, get it tomorrow, I think companies want to be near to innovation centres, they want to be nearer to their customers, and they want to be far from global risks to their supply chains. That was one of the shocks of the 2008-9 recession. Large companies found themselves vulnerable because they pushed too much risk down into the Mittelstand and sometimes didn't even know in which part of the world that risk lay. We saw that even more graphically with the dreadfully bad events of the tsunami, where wiping out one plant on the east coast of Japan caused one of my biggest supermarket members to have to cancel supermarket refurbishment for the whole of one summer because it couldn't get a single chip for its refrigeration plants. That's the point at which boards of directors began to realise that thinking global still needs us to act local. And we're starting now to see a trend. In October last year, the Civitas think tank published a report which included a list of more than 50 companies engaged in reshoring. Some big names there. Big CBI member companies, Clifford, Tom, companies that are active here at Cranfield. BT, Glaxo, Santander, M&S, Aston Martin, GM Vauxhall, Jaguar Land Rover. If we think of the automotive part of our manufacturing base, since 2012, UK vehicle makers have already reshored in excess of £1 billion worth of purchasing. And just down the road from here, the Luton-manufactured Vauxhall Vivaro van is a great example. Investment in the manufacture of the new model amounted to 185 million, helping to secure 1,200 jobs for the next 10 years. It isn't many years since British automotive was on its knees in 2008, and it isn't very many years that those of us who live in Bedfordshire had real doubts as to whether automotive manufacturing in Luton would survive. actually Britain's biggest manufacturing sector, is another Cinderella. It's one that doesn't get talked about anywhere enough, and that's the food and drink industry. The humble pot noodle is now made back in Britain. Golden Wonder's business development manager said costs in China had gone up so much that it was just as cheap to make pot noodles in Yorkshire. And it's not just big companies. Furniture manufacturer Fuda Hobart Rose, who supplied Dunelm, John Lewis and Next, is now producing 20% of their total product range for the first time in the northeast of England, with plans to increase that to 60% by the end of the decade. Today, they say, consumers want more choice when it comes to style, and they want their furniture delivered more quickly. You can't do that from China. But in a world of choice, we can't afford to stand still if we want firms to reshore in the long term. I don't just want a short-term move on the basis of short-term comparative advantage. Government and firms need to work together to make sure our domestic supply chains combine the world-beating, as I've already said, ideas, people and materials that will make Britain great. So what can we do in practical terms to make that agenda happen? First, any industrial renaissance worth its salt has to start with ideas. What better place to say that than here at Cranfield? To encourage reshoring, we need to build an innovation environment which is not only globally competitive, but world-leading. And there are examples of good work being done by government and business alike to make the UK an innovation destination. Just look at JLR. 90% of their R&D is based in the UK. And maybe opening manufacturing plants around the world, of course they will. But that R&D base remains UK-based, driven by a globally competitive supply chain here. During the last Parliament, we've seen strategic partnerships between government and industry. Government providing £1 billion at a time of austerity. How Biz got that one past the Treasury, Ian, I'll never know, for the Aerospace Technology Institute, and £500 million for the Advanced Propulsion Centre, with industry pledging to match and multiply those amounts. There's still more to do. Innovate UK, I think, still remains fundamentally under-resourced to achieve the mission which Ian started. Its 2013-14 budget is just 0.03% of UK GDP. Can't we do better than that? To build an innovation ecosystem which puts the UK on the map, we need government to aim to double departmental funding for Innovate UK by the end of this Parliament, and develop a supercharged R&D tax credit, a British success, but with too much emphasis on the R and not enough emphasis on the D. If we reshore capability into the Mittelstand supply chain, let's make the R&D tax credit cover the manufacture of prototypes, a key part of getting development work done in the UK, which is not currently eligible under the Treasury's rules on the R&D tax credit. My second area was skills. We've got to get to grips with a skills challenge, which as the economy picks up is already hitting supply chains hard. And I think the skills challenge the UK faces is nothing less than a car crash in slow motion. We need to double the number of STEM skilled graduates, triple the number of STEM apprenticeships, and greatly increase the level of female involvement in STEM subjects and applications. For example, women make up almost half the workforce, as they should, but only 16% of the STEM workforce and only 7% of Britain's 2.3 million engineers. If we could overcome gender stereotyping in those professions, there is much potential for growth. And actually, much as I don't like the term SME, I'll come out and admit I'm not that fond of the term STEM. I much prefer the term STEAM. And the A in STEAM, just to be really complex, is for creativity. We need creative designers in the computer games industry. Ralph Speck needs creative designers at Gaydon with Jaguar Land Rovers. If you watch the guy with an artist's scalpel, taking plasticine off a model of the next generation of a JLR, you understand why STEAM is a much better description than STEM. Industry has to do its part, expanding efforts to nurture skills in supply chains, taking part in school outreach programs, and as I said, challenging gender stereotypes. To take just one example, a bit further down the road, westwards in the UK, Welsh Water have built up excellent relationships. It's a really good example of a company building up relationships with schools, colleges and universities across Wales and indeed Herefordshire, promoting STEM subjects to young women of school age. The number of female applicants to their programs has increased year on year. It can be done. I think we also need government to do its bit on the STEM, STEAM and skills agenda by providing graduates in those subjects with real incentives, financial incentives to become engineers, much in the same way we already do with teachers. And we want the government to reform the immigration rules to help meet that skills deficit. The third of my three, and I'll come to a conclusion on this point, was materials. We have to protect and enhance the UK's materials capabilities if we are to make reshoring really buzz. These are crucial for making sure UK manufacturers have a secure supply of competitively priced materials for their products. In addition to its vital role in ensuring UK supply chains punch above their weight, the materials industry contributes in its own right. It's responsible for 500,000 jobs in the UK. But we are at risk of losing the critical materials capabilities that underpin a wide range of manufacturing activities, due in part to international competition and to rising energy costs. Heavy energy users in the UK are currently paying around 50% more for their electricity than their European competitors. To protect UK's materials capabilities, we need government and the UK foundation industries to work more closely together. They're not seen as sexy. They don't get picked up by government ministers who much prefer to talk about advanced manufacturing, but they're a critical part of that manufacturing value chain. When I'm across in Berlin talking to my German offset member, German industry takes materials capability much more seriously in its industrial strategy than we do in ours. Of course, in the whole debate you're having today, and forgive me, I have to get back to London a bit later, I can't stay for the whole day, we can't be complacent. Reshoring is not a given. We have to do everything in our power to make what is currently a trickle become a flood. A growing middle class in China does not guarantee that production will come back here. We've got to play to our strengths by creating an innovative, skills-rich environment where the materials companies' needs are available and affordable. We can encourage firms to reshore for good. And the prize for strengthening our supply chains is also enormous. CBI economists have estimated that we could inject 30 billion sterling into the economy by 2025 if we get this debate right. That industrial renaissance could add 500,000 high-quality jobs to the British economy. Government, business, academia, including many of you in this room, working together to make it happen. Thank you very much.